Welcome to another episode of After the Pull, guys. I'm Mike Spider Slayer. This is the video series where I take all the comic books I read for the week and see if they lived up to the hype, and I also give you my top 5 as well. So welcome back to another episode, and let's kick this bad boy off with the dark web stuff. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I did an individual video on Dark Web X-Men issue 3 and the newest issue of Venom issue 15. I will leave you a card up above if you want to watch that. I actually go off the handle there. Insane. This book is not worth your time, your hard-earned money. This story is so shallow, it's not even funny. It's a very weak plot. The artwork is not my favorite in this book. And let me tell you, by the time I got to the end of issue 3 here, I was like, man, I wish I never read this. Issue 1 showed some promise, but this was definitely a waste of time, not worth your hard-earned cash. And then we have Venom issue 15, which structurally and artistically and everything else, it was a much better issue, as we get to see Dylan Brock do battle against his father in a showdown and hoping to release his father. Now, if you've been reading the Venom series, Bedlam, who is this red Venom creature from the future, is Dylan Brock. Meredith is a Eddie Brock as well. And Dylan is doing battle against him, and he wants to create this team to stop his father, and he recruits the Red Goblin, which is Normie Osborn. He gets Sleeper Agent involved as well. And let's just say our favorite friend, Ms. Marvel, doesn't want these characters to fight, and she intervenes by the time you get to the end of it. It was an absolutely perfect story until Ms. Marvel, again, intervenes in everything. I love seeing how Dylan was the voice of reason when it comes to Normie Osborn being the Red Goblin once again. But again, Ms. Marvel is like this agenda that Marvel has where it's like, we gotta put her in a book. If you want her in a book, just make your own freaking series. I guess you don't want to because her books don't sell. But just because she was in 2 panels of the Amazing Spider-Man series doesn't mean she belongs in this Spider-Man event and ruins the story. So, you know what? You're probably going to want to read this book, but overall, it was just disappointing with her intervening. All right, the next book we're going to be talking about, which is a really solid book, and this one goes to The Punisher. This is issue 9, as we get to see Punisher do battle against Ares, the god of war, which was actually a really action-packed issue. We get to see a specific character do the narration in this book. I'm not going to spoil that, and we actually get to see if Maria, who is his wife, remembers everything that happens, right? We get to dive deeper into the Punisher's past, and this was a solid issue. Right outside my top 5, I would say, but everything's been building up into this. Where does the Punisher go once this major story arc is done? Well, let's just say that our heroes are teaming up to do battle against the Punisher, and it consists of Daredevil, Moon Knight, Wolverine, Black Widow, Doctor Strange. It's going to be an epic battle. I cannot wait for that to happen. All right, next book that we're going to be talking about now is Hulk. This is issue 11. This is the issue that Ryan Ottley takes over as the writer. And if you want to say anything, this book is a filler book, as we get to see the Hulk play a game that these other Hulks play, and it's called God Ball, where they take the core of a planet and they make it into a ball. Now, if you're wondering, they destroyed the planet with civilization on it. No, they take abandoned planets that has no life, and they use this ball to score points in the rings that they have around their planet. And we get to see Hulk try to level up and, you know, use his stage 1s and stage 2 and try to prove himself worthy and the strongest one there is against the other Hulks, which is actually kind of fun. You know, I give Ryan Ottley credit for trying to, you know, to kind of go into this story, taking over the writing duties when Donny Cates was writing it. So It was an okay issue. It was pretty fun. Our Hulk creatures, the leader, Monolith, comes against a resistance. She quickly resolves that situation. And yeah, that basically was the issue here. And we'll see how this story continues. I think Hulk ends very soon. If I'm not mistaken, I thought it was either 12 or 14. I don't know, somewhere around there. But I think Ryan Ottley did a serviceable job, but not a very important, integral part of the story. All right, next, we're going to be talking about Wasp, issue 1. I discussed this issue in depth in my Worthy Ones video, and I really am on the fence if I'm going to continue about this book, as we get a story about Janet Van Dyne and her stepdaughter Nadia, and we go into a bunch of family history. They obviously have something connected because both their parents got killed, and it has to deal with this gamma radiated, I don't know, Pizza the Hut looking blobby creature, where if you look at it, it gives you a death stare. And yeah, that was it. I thought this book had a lot of talking heads in it, and it wasn't very exciting. You finally get a battle at the end of this with Whirlwind in a comic book, and he's being controlled by this creature. That's basically the issue. It wasn't very exciting. For me, it didn't have a huge cliffhanger in it. So, depending on the comic book week is if I'm going to pick up the second issue of this or not. Next book we're going to be talking about is DC Lazarus Planet, Assault on Krypton. This is the first one-shot issue that was released after the Alpha issue. And this book was okay. It's a bunch of one-shots on featuring the Superman family. You got a story that deals with John, you get a story that deals with Kara, you got a story that deals with Power Girl. The only one that was really of any excitement to me was the story that has to deal with Mercy. And she is Lex Luthor's bodyguard, and she gets affected by the Lazarus volcano, the weather event that's happening, and she turns into some type of cyborg. And I thought that was an interesting story, and I can see some character development there on how she can become either this good guy, bad guy, or continue to protect Lex Luthor. I thought it was really good. All the other stories, take it for what they are. Nothing spectacular here, and it just, shows you that I wish Mark Waid was the sole writer on this Lazarus stuff, but obviously not, and you're just going to get these one-shots. So I would recommend picking up the one-shots on the characters that you truly like, right? So that's all I have to say there. The next number one that we're talking about this week is Barbaric issue 1. Really solid book. If you've never read the original volumes, volume 1 and 2, I would say read that, because this story continues after volume 2, where we get our characters looking for Owen, who is this barbarian that's been cursed with this axe, and this axe lusts for blood, and we get to see the adventure that these characters go on. Very fun comic book. It's very vulgar. There's lots of violence in there. Wouldn't recommend this for a younger audience, but it was cool to see where our heroes end up by the time you get to the end of it. Owen is at the end of it, and yeah, fun read. But again, definitely read volumes 1 and 2 before you pick up this next volume. All right, so let's talk about the next book here, and the next one is Deadpool. This is issue 3. 1 and 2 I had a blast with. 3 took a little bit of a nosedive for me. I felt like not a lot happened in this issue. We get to see this symbiote that's growing in Deadpool's body. We have this character that I think wants the symbiote, and she's kind of tricking Wade into like a relationship aspect, and she like makes her eggs and takes her to the park, and she says she's doing an experiment on this symbiote to study it, so they take it to the fair and stuff. And then you got the other characters that are looking for it as well, which is Dr. Octopus, and you get that other character by the name of the Harrower. Her name is Harriet Drones, which is a Poison Ivy ripoff. And you know, it was okay, but it was the weakest issue so far. I felt it had a lot of cutesy things in it, and it just wasn't, I don't know, top tier for me like it was in those first 2 issues. And the thing with me is, it's like he's got this little baby symbiote that's coming out that's like talking to him and stuff, and I don't know, I just find it a little bit weird. There was like mutated giraffes in here, and I'm like, I don't know, this is getting a little bit too over the top for me. The problem with Deadpool is there's not a lot of wiggle room. If I lose interest in Deadpool pretty quickly, I'm going to drop the title. I'm not going to give it a chance. And this might get one more issue, and then I'm going to see where the story goes from here and if I'm going to continue it or not. All right, top 5 territory. Here we go. Number 5, we have Invincible Iron Man issue 2. This is a pretty good book, guys. I know what we're thinking is that we're tired of seeing Tony Stark in the gutter. In the last issue, if you read it, you got to see him stumbled over and he looked like he fell off the wagon and he was drunk. It's actually not the case. He was actually poisoned, and he went to an AA meeting and they poisoned his hot chocolate or something like that. So there's actually somebody trying to assassinate him, trying to frame him, trying to put him down in the gutters, and he's trying to come back. And the whole reason why Tony doesn't have any of his money is because he bought all the weapons in the world, so there wouldn't be any mass destruction. And he gave himself enough money so he could barely survive. In the issue, we have Riri Williams in the book that actually comes by his side and helps him, and they do battle against the living laser. And there's somebody putting thoughts in the living laser's mind like Tony Stark did something against him. Now, the kicker in this comic book is that Riri Williams possesses the Mandarin rings, and she actually acquired these Mandarin rings. And see if I can find it real quick in Iron Man in 2022 in issue number 24. And what happens is we wind up seeing Tony advise her to not hold on to those rings because bad things happens to people when you have those Mandarin rings. And she's like, they're in good possession and stuff like that. And later on in the issue, you find her using these rings, and she keeps them on her the entire time. And that was quite interesting. And I felt like Riri's going in this little bit of a darker direction. So I'm finding myself very intrigued where this story is going to go, with if Riri's going to be in it more often, the direction of Tony Stark. I recommend this book, guys. Let's move forward now to number 4. And number 4 for me was Nightwing, issue 100. Oversized issue. You pay a lot of money for it. It's a $7 comic book. And, okay, listen. I thought that this was better than most celebratory issues because at least here you get one big story. Whereas other issues you would get a dedication to the character, all these different artists or writers doing different things with the character, short stories, stuff like that. I didn't know what to expect. Here it was one continuous story. Was it a repetitive story? Yeah, it actually was, where you get to see Heartless in this book. KG Beast was in here trying to hunt down nothing that you didn't see in the original volume. You had some cool pinup pages in this book representing all the, the different time periods of the character, which was kind of cool. But it wasn't until the end of this book where it was like, okay, well, this picks it up for me, right? And this was a time where we wind up seeing that Dick Grayson is recruited by Superman, Wonder Woman to actually lead the Justice League. And that in itself is a huge honor for him to guard the planet. Like, that's insane. That shows you how important he is of a character to everybody. So I thought that was a very touching moment. He had to actually, think about it. And then he decided, you know what? I can be the protector of the Earth, but I can do something that I'm very familiar with. And this is a spoiler, and he comes up with recreating or building the new Teen Titans Tower, or the new Titans Tower once again, which I thought was actually kind of cool because it did get destroyed and whatnot. And so he's going to bring back his Titans, and he's going to be the protector of the Earth that way instead of the Justice League, right? So no Justice League, Teen Titans. I keep saying Teen Titans. Titans, and that's that. The best thing about the book was the conversation between him and Bruce. I thought that was a very touching, heartfelt moment of what Batman meant to Dick and what Dick meant to Batman. So I thought it was an awesome conversation, and that's what Tom Taylor does really well when it comes to the characters' moments, right? That's what makes this book shine. There might not be a lot of story progression, but overall, I thought it was a good book, better than a lot of short story nonsense that we get in these, milestone issues. So I thought it was fun. Coming in at number 3, this book never disappoints. It's not number 1 this time, but we get World's Finest. This is issue 11. We wind up getting to see the outcome of what happens to Boy Thunder, right? And Boy Thunder kind of loses his temper very easily, and they come to this agreement, Batman and Superman, that they have to depower him and make him just this normal boy. But you know what? Superman could not do that. He just could not do that to that poor boy. He was in such pain and agony that he wanted to prove himself to Superman, and Superman treats this Boy Thunder kid like a son. He actually mentions that in this comic book, basically, right? So just as he lets him go, we wind up seeing the Key make his appearance in the not the Hall of Justice, but Superman's fortress, and they start doing this battle against each other. And at the end of it all, you wind up seeing the Boy Thunder no longer in this Earth. He goes somewhere else at the end of it. And I thought it was interesting. I really enjoyed it. It kind of leaves you off with a great cliffhanger, and this is not the end of the story arc yet. So great story. What I love about this book also is the emotion of this boy. He's been through so much, and he's so confused. He doesn't know what's right, what's good, what's bad, what's evil, and where he should be. He thinks things are going to turn out good in the next place he turns out, and it looks like they're going to turn out horribly wrong. So, yeah, great book here, man. World's Finest, issue 11. Definitely a must read. Definitely one of my favorite comics. All right, so now we move on to number 2. And number 2 is a book that I'm really enjoying, and you can't beat it because it's got that $2 price tag, and that's Nightclub. This is issue 2. Holy cow, guys, this book is so much fun. We got to see this boy who gets in this horrific accident, making a YouTube video, trying to be a star, and he falls off a building, he breaks his back, he breaks his neck, and this vampire comes across him and says, well, this kid's got nothing else better, loser, he's gonna die. Why don't I recruit him to be part of my army? So you got to see all that in the first issue. And in this issue, you get to see him meet his friends, realizing that, oh my God, we thought you were basically dead. And he tells his friends, I'm a vampire, and you guys can be vampires too. Just let me bite you. And, he gives them all the reasoning behind it, like the superpowers and how they can be a super team. And you get to see that here. He gets to bite his friends, and they do. They become these vampire-like heroes. So they want to make their own YouTube channel and be stars. And here it is. You get to see them scaling the rooftops like superheroes. An absolutely great comic. And then they run into the school bully, and something happens with the school bully, which I didn't think the ending was all that great. I thought it would be much more intense ending. But hey, it was still a lot of fun, and I think that's the point of the issue, of them exploring their powers on what they can and can't do. One of the coolest things is when they transform into mist or into different types of bats. So if you guys haven't checked this out, definitely check it out. You got nothing to lose, man, for $2. $2. That's like going back to freaking 1999 or something like that. Shit, great book. All right, but number 1 was The Flash, issue 791. Guys, I am loving The Flash. The last issue was a great jumping on point for me, having the whole family involved in this whole event, where we get to see this group by the name of the Fraction, who has landed on Earth like an Independence Day thing where UFOs come and they take over the entire Earth, and everyone is frozen in time except the Flash people, right? The people that have the Speed Force. And the way this comic is set up reminds me of how comics used to be, right? It was just a fun story with lots of action, great character work, great artwork, nothing overly complex, not a huge gimmick thing. You know, it's just self-contained in the Flash comic books, and it was awesome. And there was great emotion in this book when it has to do with Iris, because as of right now, Iris, this is a spoiler, it has happened in the last issue, as of right now, she is dead. And we get to see kind of like the emotions that the entire family is going after. And then you get to see Jesse Quick in this book, and it's just awesome. And there's this war that these people, these fractions, wants to take over the planet. And he gets a report from his lieutenant saying there's all these different people in here, you know, that could pose a threat. And you know, the emperor is kind of like, well, let's capture him. I want to impress the empress, you know. So it's kind of cool, man. And they say go release the hunter. And the hunter is revealed at the end of this comic, and I need to show you this because this is how like cliffhangers were. We get to see this cool new villain at the end, and it gets you pumped, and it gets you this thing right here. That's like the huntress. She's got these crazy dogs. She got this spiked collar on her face, mohawk, all kinds of crazy crap. Her name is Miss Murder. The Fraction is in need of you. That is insane. That is sick right there. Great artwork. It's just... This comic is like why and how I fell in love with comics to begin with. There's a beginning, middle, and end, nothingly over complex, great cliffhanger, great villain, great characters overall. Such an awesome comic book, and it makes me can't wait for the next issue of this. So definitely $7.90 is that great jumping on point. I will recommend this every day of the week. So there you guys have it. There are all the books I read this week, and there was my top 5. Let me know in the comments below what you thought. And of course, guys, if you love my content, did you guys know that there's a new Avengers team being revealed? That's right. The new book is coming out on May 17th of this year. Check out who the team is and check out who the creative team is. Guys, as always, keep buying, keep collecting, but most importantly, always read your comics.